Well, it's time. The most requested video I've ever had, my review of the Pimax Crystal. And how does it compare to the Aero? We got a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Welcome everyone to another edition of Get Your Game On, the channel dedicated to immersive gaming experiences. If this is your first time here and you like what you see, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. So, I've had the Pimax Crystal now for a few weeks. I finally got it comfortable enough that I could wear it for extended periods. So today I'm going to share with you my experiences, some of my conclusions, and let you know if this is the right headset for you. Now we are also going to compare it to the Varjo Aero, so neither headset is perfect. Each one has its own pros and cons, and we'll go through some of that at the end. But before that, let me remind you that virtual reality and VR is a different experience for everyone, depending on your face shape, your eye placement. So my experiences might not be the exact experience you have, but hopefully this video will give you some insight and some information that will help you in your purchase decision. Basically, the biggest thing I want to talk about real quick, we're going to talk about the Crystal itself, and then we're going to compare it also with the Varjo Aero. But the one thing I want to say right off the bat is the Crystal has better visuals than the Aero, for sure. But I will say they're not different enough that if you're coming from an old style headset, especially one of the old ones that has the Fresnel lenses or something like that, the experience in either of these headsets is going to be amazing for you. So again, the Crystal is the best, but the Aero isn't far behind. So realistically, you'll want to choose the headset based on what fits your needs. And we're going to talk a little bit about that towards the end of the video, from my experience and where I think these headsets fit into who should get what. So right off the bat, let's talk about the things I do like about the Pimax Crystal. I really like the off-ear audio, these DMAS headset audio. They sound fantastic. It's so nice to have the speakers off my ear and my ears open. I really missed that from my HP G2 days. So in addition to that, they have the volume control here. So I love having volume on the headset itself. I love having a power button. That's really nice that you can make sure you have the headset turned off. And then, you know, I also like the fact that the screens will shut off on their own. You can set that from like 20 seconds, 2 minutes, whatever you want to set it. But it's really nice to know that those screens will auto shut off if the headset is not being used. The Varjo Aero, you always had to make sure you had the power off and all that stuff. So that's a really nice kind of comfort feature on the Crystal. I will tell you, if for some reason your headset's not connecting, make sure you have the power on. I've seen that happen where people are saying, it doesn't work, it's not connecting. Well, you got to turn the power on for that. Another tip that we'll talk about too, while we're talking about little hints, make sure if you're having trouble with your headset connecting, make sure this battery is pushed all the way in. One time I could not get my headset to turn on. I was pulling cables and all that stuff, and all it was this battery was slightly unseated, and without this battery seated, you will not be able to turn the headset on. So those are some little tips and tricks that I found using the Pimax headset. The other thing I really like, obviously we've got the IPD. Now the software hasn't come out yet that allows the auto IPD, but I've been able to use this and get the IPD where I like it. I do love having an integrated battery, so big plus there. Those of you that watch the channel know that I basically have been running an HTC Vive Pro. I've been running that wirelessly for years, and this headset is the replacement for my room scale setup and the wireless operation there. So the Crystal is going to be coming out with a wireless adapter that'll plug into the top here, and that's going to give me wireless room scale. So I'm looking forward to that. And so having the integrated battery, not having to have a battery pack with a wire running to it, is a big plus. Now, taking away from that plus is the way they designed this battery is terrible. So I did a little animation to show you kind of how this battery works. So in this animation, I made the actual buttons for the retention system. I made it red so you can see it real easily. But as you can see, you basically have to press down and the latch release pivots when you push down on these buttons. Now, if Pimax is watching this or any of you aftermarket folks are watching, these buttons should work this way. You should push them together to release the battery. That just makes more sense. It's more intuitive. So anyone that wants to make an aftermarket battery for the Pimax headset, this is how the release mechanism should work, in my opinion. Now, I don't think the headset is going to have to be modified if somebody actually changed the battery, or if Pimax changes the battery design. I don't think you're going to have to change the design in the headset. I think you could make that switch just on the battery itself. So plus for the battery and a minus for the battery. The other thing about the battery, everybody's talking about how the battery runs down. They're so concerned with it. That's really a non-issue. I wore this thing for several hours flying and things. I never saw this battery discharge even a bar in the software with it plugged in to that USB-powered USB hub that comes with the headsets now. So worrying about this battery running out of power while it's plugged in, again, from my experience, is an absolute non-issue. I wouldn't worry about that at all. So that's my results from that. Since we're talking about the headset, let's talk a little bit about the controller. I didn't do a whole lot with the controllers, but they're adequate. They're light. They seem to be, pretty much a Quest clone as far as the button layout and everything. They feel fine. They track okay. What I've found is that the tracking on the Pimax Crystal is really close to the tracking we had with the original HP G2 and the controllers. So it's not great, and it does lose tracking every once in a while with the controllers, but it's doable. It works for most things. You may just have a little glitch where the controller flies out of your hand briefly and then snaps back. So that was my experience with the controllers. Again, I didn't do any room scale stuff. That was just from using menus, going through Steam and all that stuff. But the controller tracking was okay, and I'd imagine they're going to continue to improve it. They're always releasing new software updates. So I would imagine 6 months from now, it's probably going to be considerably better. Now, the headset itself tracks pretty good with inside-out tracking. There's cameras you can see that it uses to see the room. I'd say it was also probably on par with the HP. Every once in a while, I would have it lose tracking, and I'd kind of slide out of the cockpit or something like that. I'd say maybe 10% of the time I was having issues with tracking briefly, and then it would snap back. So the inside-out tracking works pretty good, but I did have it lose tracking a few times, and I had the room lit and all that stuff, so it wasn't necessarily a problem with the environment. Again, that may also improve with new software and firmware upgrades, so we will see. But it's certainly usable. The headset tracking itself, again, it reminded me of the G2, where it would lose tracking every once in a while as well. So overall, tracking the headset, very good. Tracking the controllers, okay. So that's kind of been my experience with all that stuff. Now, this headset also has an all-in-one feature, so it's very much like the Quest stuff where you can flip this little switch and it makes this headset a standalone. I'm not going to talk about that at all because I have absolutely zero interest in the all-in-one feature. I bought this as a PC VR headset, and so I'm not interested. That switch will probably never get flipped because I'm not going to spend a lot of money on a whole new gaming ecosystem when I already have all my stuff in Steam. So that's kind of that situation. So those of you that have watched my previous videos of the unboxing and first impressions know I couldn't wear this thing for more than like an hour. It was just so uncomfortable. And thankfully, my friends at Studio Form Creative sent me over what they're using to make this a lot more comfortable. This is the Apache strap, and it's a pretty neat thing. So it's basically just a head strap that has, Velcro that go around the audio strap and all that, and it basically alleviates the pressure that's all on your forehead. This in connection with a new face gasket from Pimax. So the original face gasket that you get from Pimax is 11 millimeters thick. Now this is still the comfort face gasket because it's got the part that goes over your forehead, but at 11 millimeters thick, this just was not thick enough to give me the comfort I needed, and it was painful to use. So definitely the combination of the new face gasket at 15 millimeters mixed with the Apache head strap, and then also they sent me a counterweight to add to this. And this is 200 grams right here that I've added. But what that does, it actually takes the headset and pulls it off my cheeks that it was really digging into. It gets the headset weighted back. I also had to unstrap the cable from the hook back here because having it hooked back there, it was constantly trying to pull the back of the headset up, which consequently, dug into my cheeks. So between the extra weight back here, the Apache strap, the thicker face gasket, unhooking this, I was able to get this thing where I could wear it. So thank you very much, Studioform Creative, for sending that over to me. Now, I will tell you, even if you're not having any comfort issues, one thing that I noticed, for me to get this headset where it felt right, I was putting a ton of pressure on this ribbon cable. So this is the ribbon cable that takes the power from the battery and feeds the headset with it. And what I noticed was this strap, this is the standard elastic strap that comes on the Pimax Crystal, and it's like elastic out of your underwear or something. I mean, it absolutely holds nothing. This thing is almost worthless. And so what I found was I was actually putting all the weight on this top power ribbon, and that's just going to lead to problems. So you really need to double check the way you wear your headset and make sure you're not putting all the pressure and all the weight of the headset on the strap. If you are, get an Apache head strap and make sure that this is what's carrying the weight versus all the weight being on this power ribbon cable that's going to end up giving you problems down the road by probably coming loose on either the headset side or the battery side. So definitely double check that. I do have some affiliate links for the Apache head strap in the description below. If you don't need it, great, but definitely something to look into. I could see that becoming a problem down the road. So I also, while we're talking about other companies, I want to give a shout out real quick to Hans VR. Hans VR, we're the only company, when I was looking for some corrective lenses for the Pimax, they were the only ones that were able to get out to my correction level. I have pretty bad vision. It's like correction of about 10, and they were the only ones that could do any lenses that high or that strong and still have the magnetic adapters. So the nice thing about the magnetic adapters is if other people are going to use your headset, instead of having to pull that whole lens adapter off the headset, you can just magnetically pull it out real quick, and then when you get back in, you put it back in. So I want to say thank you to Hans VR as well. It's been a really good company. I've actually got to know them a little bit over the course of testing the Pimax, and I've been very impressed with their customer service and everything. So if you're looking for any lens inserts or even just some regular lenses to protect the standard lenses, I definitely feel like Hans VR is worth a look, no pun intended. So I also want to talk about, we talked about the discomfort that I experienced, which it's amazing. So this face gasket at 15 millimeters was essential for me because my eyes and everything were so close to the lenses. There would be no way you could wear glasses in here. But I've heard in the comments some people saying they're able to wear their glasses and everything in the headset no problem. So I couldn't quite get an answer if they actually had upgraded to the 15 millimeters or not. They didn't reply. But to me, if you have glasses or anything like prescription lenses that you need in this thing, you have to get this 15 millimeter face gasket. And Pimax, you guys really should include this standard. I had to buy it extra. You really should include this facial gasket as part of the package because anyone with glasses or anything, I think, will need this, and it's definitely more comfortable. So that's how I was able to get this thing working and got it to where I could actually wear it for extended periods of time. So some of the things that I don't like also, talking about the face gasket, so these cutouts where the glasses, the cutout, those do give you a little light bleed, at least on my face. So what I was seeing is I get a little bit of light that reflects off just the corners of the lenses. It's not terrible, it's not super bad, but it is there. So I think the Pimax Crystal is ideal for a company like VR Cover to come out with a new facial interface to go into this thing. It's only held on with Velcro, so super easy to install. But I think if you made this out of, basically without these cutouts, that would take care of the light bleed situation. Now, this material is kind of a foam. It's very similar to my Vive Pro, which it's super comfortable. I don't mind it. I actually think it feels pretty nice on my face. But I will tell you, this is a sweat sponge. So if you're going to share this headset, this material does soak up the sweat like crazy. So there's nothing worse than taking a headset, putting it on, and feeling all the sweat from the person that just used it. So I think, again, VR cover, if you made one of these out of a faux leather or something like that, that's going to help with that hygiene and being able to keep that headset nice and clean for multiple users in a setting. So those are my recommendations there. So let's talk about probably my biggest disappointment with the Pimax Crystal, and that's the screens. So those of you that have watched the channel know that I am an OLED snob. I absolutely love my OLED panels. I was so disappointed when they stopped putting OLED screens into VR headsets, and I've been looking for that black ever since. So unfortunately, this has QLED screens, which I was hoping with the local dimming would give me that same experience, but I'm here to tell you it does not. Now, can the screens go black? Yes, they can. So if you're in a setting like if you're gazing at the night sky and it's pitch black, you're going to have that OLED black in that scenario. But if you're flying or you have any kind of lighting or, let's say structure on a spaceship that's lit up, you get so much bloom from these panels that it's really not usable. It looks like fog. It looks like your lenses are fogging up when you have that going on. And I've done a little video here, so let me show you. So this is through the lens video, and obviously this isn't what the visuals look like, but I'm trying to show you how the backlighting works. And you can see everywhere you're looking on this the screen where it's black, that is black. It is black like OLED, but you can see anywhere that you have instrumentation and the glow, it's like you're looking through the lenses and they're fogged up. It's the weirdest experience. There's such a big bloom on the backlighting that it just looks like everything's fogged up in the lenses. And so everything that's black here is black, but you see the light glow around all the instrumentation and the ship panels and all that stuff. You see that in the headset, and it totally takes away from that OLED experience. So if you were gazing up into a pitch black sky, it's going to be black. But if you're trying to fly anything at night with any kind of instrumentation lighting or anything, it just doesn't get it. The only way to get rid of that is to have the backlighting turned on at least slightly. And once you do that, you no longer have the blacks. So you have kind of a choice. If you want to get a sense of that black, then you're going to have to deal with what looks like lens fog and glare. Or you're going to have to turn on that backlighting, which takes away from the blacks. Now, what it does do with the local dimming, it does allow you to have the dimness down. You can turn that backlighting way down, and then the highlights will be that much more bright. So that's a good thing. And so you do get some advantages of the local dimming. But if you're looking for those blacks, which I love, this isn't it. And the other problem is these are the same panels that they claim to be using in the Somnium VR1. So even that headset, when it comes out, is going to have this blooming issue if they're using the same panels. And it's so frustrating for me because we finally have in these spherical lenses, you have a lens that no longer causes that blooming, the glare, the God rays, but now we can't get a panel behind it that doesn't have blooming or glare or any of that stuff. So one of these days, one of these VR headset manufacturers is going to figure out how to put an OLED screen behind a spherical lenses, and then we will finally be back to having that amazing VR experience with the blacks. But until then, again, this one isn't it. It's close. Is it better? Yes, it's better, but you can get very close to the same results with the Varjo Aero using the brightness controls. The overall brightness won't be as high on the lit parts, but it's a very similar experience. So unfortunately, no blacks on this one. Again, unless you're looking on just a pure black sky or something like that. But for me, flying, I didn't have a single experience flying any of my airplanes or even in Elite Dangerous where I didn't see that blooming that just looked like fogged up lenses. So kind of a big disappointment on that. But again, at least it leaves room for improvement, right? So that's kind of where we're at with the Crystal. And I guess it's time, let's talk a little bit about the Crystal versus the Aero, since I have them both. Now, keep in mind, I did not buy this headset to replace my Aero. My Varjo Aero, I still absolutely love it. We're going to talk about which one I'll probably use the most. But let's compare the two. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up on the screen the stats side by side. But again, let me reiterate, if you're coming from a previous generation of headset, the experience from the Pimax Crystal and the Varjo Aero are going to give you a very, very similar experience. And certainly, I don't think if you have an Aero, it's worth upgrading to the Crystal because the experience isn't that much different from the two. So what is different? Well, the biggest difference is the field of view. So the field of view in the Crystal is about twice the height of the field of view in the Varjo Aero. So the Varjo Aero, when you look through it, it's more of a movie theater widescreen presentation, so it's more of a rectangle. In this, it's more take that same field of view and go vertically about twice as high, and it gives you more of a 4x3 screen that you're looking at, which means a lot more visual, a lot more vertical field of view. You can see a lot more looking up. So where does that come into play? Well, for me, I love dogfighting. I love fighter combat. I love space sim combat. And there's an old adage from fighter pilots. The old adage is, lose sight, lose the fight. And in the Pimax Crystal, you can keep your eyes on the enemy plane a heck of a lot easier than you can in the Aero. So if you are into dogfighting, space sim dogfighting, any of that stuff, this headset is an advantage. I would say this would be the headset to get over the Aero. Now, certainly, if you have an AMD video card, well, the AMD video cards don't work with the Varjo Aero, so that's another situation where AMD video card, you want the Pimax Crystal. A big one, if you don't already have lighthouses or controllers for that kind of base station application, and you want those nice visuals, this is really your only choice because all the other high-end headsets require lighthouses and base stations. So if you're new to this and don't have any of that other equipment, this is really the best choice if you want to get those high-end visuals. If you want to be untethered, if you want to cut the cord, well, the Varjo Aero is tethered. There's nothing you can do about it. The Pimax Crystal is supposed to be coming out with a module that'll plug in here that's a wireless module that's going to allow this headset to be wireless. That's the big reason I purchased this headset, to replace my wireless Vive Pro. And so if you want to go wireless, again, this is really your only option if you want this high-level visuals. Again, the Quest does wireless. There are some other ones like the Pico that do wireless. But if you want this high-end visuals with the spheric lenses, this is the only game in town. So those are the big reasons to get the Pimax Crystal. If you do a lot of productivity like desktop and you're trying to migrate to using a VR headset for your kind of your desktop applications, I'd also say there's an edge to the Crystal in that as well. For some reason, the Aero has always had some issues with kind of the clarity on desktop. As far as desktop visuals and all that stuff, everything has a little weird jagginess to it. In the Crystal, it was crystal clear, no pun intended. It absolutely looked great, and so if you're doing any kind of desktop replacement or trying to do productivity work, I would say the Crystal is probably it. Now, in my opinion, for pretty much everything else, I think this is a better choice. So the Varjo Aero is much lighter. Again, it doesn't have the on-ear audio or off-ear audio, so you still have to add the weight of whatever your audio solution is to this. But I'd say even for general aviation, I think this is a better choice because general aviation, you're generally in an airplane that has a ceiling, so you're not really trying to look up and get that vertical field of view. For racing, I absolutely think this is a far better choice than the Pimax Crystal for any of you sim racers because it's lighter. And because it also has a cooling fan inside of it, which, you know, those online races can take hours and hours. So having that little bit of air circulation in your face and kind of blowing on your face really adds a lot of comfort. So for sim racers, you don't need that high vertical field of view. I would say this is still the headset of choice for you sim racers out there. So those are kind of the reasons. I think pretty much for everybody else, I mean, the Varjo Aero is still a really solid choice. It's a better build. Not to say the quality of the Pimax is bad, but this is a really stout build. The materials on this headset are amazing. The software is constantly being developed, and it's really high-end software that they spend a lot of time adding features. So we'll see how that goes. For me personally, I'm probably going to move over to the Pimax Crystal because I do enjoy dogfighting. I do enjoy space combat. And that vertical field of view gives me enough of an edge in this headset that I will probably use this from here on out on my flight sim stuff. But let's say somebody comes over and wants to experience VR for the first time or wants to try the motion platform, I'm probably going to put them in this because I think overall this is just a much more pleasant experience. And I don't know that someone that's new to VR is really going to notice the limited vertical field of view. So that's kind of where I stand on the Pimax Crystal versus the Aero. Again, neither headset's perfect. Each one has a great position out there for certain applications. The one thing I can tell you with the weight of the Pimax Crystal, you do have to be careful. If you have a very narrow IPD, the lenses in here are so big, you will feel the lenses pushing against your nose if you have a very narrow IPD. And if you're doing a lot of things where you're doing a lot of rapid head movement, you will feel this thing move around in your face far more than you will feel the Aero moving around. So hopefully this will kind of give you an idea of which headset might be better for your use case. I have affiliate links below for both the Varjo Aero and also the Pimax Crystal. And in honor of my Pimax Crystal review, I actually got a $20 off coupon code from Pimax. So if you want to order below and you put in the code GIGO20, they'll give you $20 off if you're going to purchase this headset. So that's basically where we stand with everything. I will continue to test the Pimax Crystal. I still have a lot of things I want to try with this, especially when I get the Lighthouse faceplate and I can try the lighthouse tracking and all that kind of thing. There is also one other use case that I think the Pimax Crystal might be good for. I'll give you a little hint on the screen now, but I've got to get that and test it before I can actually say whether it's going to work or not. So that wraps up our review video. Appreciate you watching as always, and until next time, remember to get your game on.